Welcome back to Untold Physio Stories podcast. I'm your host, Dr. E, with Modern Manual Therapy and Edge Mobility System. My co-host, Dr. Sean Wells, and I are going to do an asynchronous episode as I'm currently traveling to teach a live modern manual therapy course in Cherry Hill, New Jersey, and Sean is busy this weekend. So, as you know, you may have heard from previous episodes, we both have a big emphasis on lifestyle medicine. We're going to come up with a lifestyle medicine certification course for physical therapists. Look for that in the coming months. But I'm always looking for ways to motivate people, especially when I'm prescribing, one or more of the 5 pillars of lifestyle medicine. And people typically need to be motivated to make these behavioral changes, as you can't just tell them, hey, I think you should eat better or sleep better or exercise more. Usually the whole reason why people are coming to you to begin with, even if they're actually paying for a wellness program, is you may need to find their motivation. A certain strategy, apparently out of Toyota, is called the 5 whys. And you're supposed to ask a series of 5 whys or more. And I'll go through an example that I used with my mentee. And it could be more than 5 whys, and of course it could be less, but typically if you keep on asking why, you may get to the actual heart of a problem rather than, oh, I just don't feel like doing it, or I'm just unable to do it. So in particular, this case was a cervical case of my mentee that I'm currently working with online, and he said that he has this patient that always does great, she feels great when she does her retractions, yet she pretty much just says she has no time to do her retractions. So I said, hey, why don't you try the 5 whys? So his line of questioning went like this. Why are you unable to do the retractions even though they make you feel better? And she said, well, it's because I'm so busy reading and I also like to cook. And he said, well, why do you like to read and cook so much? And she said, well, it's because I'm bored at home. And he said, why do you get bored at home? And she said, well, it's because I retired in the last year and I really miss my coworkers. And he said, well, why do you miss your coworkers so much? And what makes you, kind of long for them? And she said, the main thing really is we used to go for walks at lunch and I really miss that interaction. So I said, well, is it really that you don't have time to do the exercises, or is it that, you really miss your coworkers and that's why you're bored? So the strategy is, why after you figure out that she's not just unwilling to do her exercises and she's taking precedence for her hobbies over her recovery plan, but it's mostly that she misses the social interaction. So the whole, what he suggested was, how about, you call up your coworkers a few times a week and you go for regular walks with them, or you listen to a podcast instead of reading a book when on the days that you can't because you really enjoy the book, but at least you'll be getting out as part of the recovery plan with the 1 to 2 outdoor walks a day, which helps empty your cup. How, on a scale from 0 to 10, how likely are you to do these things? And she said, well, it's probably 7 or 8. So, using those kind of motivational interviewing techniques plus a combination of the 5 whys helps really get to the heart at what the issue really is, then suggesting a small, kind of actionable item that you can do, like the outdoor walks or calling your friends or a combination of both, and listening to audiobooks or podcasts instead of reading. That helps her move more often and helps her empty her cup. So I'm curious as to, Sean, if you've ever heard about the 5 whys and what you think about this case.
Hey, Erson, it's Dr. Wells. I really enjoyed so far listening to your podcast, and yeah, I'm on the road as well, so it's great that we're able to go back and forth thanks to technology. I love the Toyota 5 whys. I think it's great. I've actually I don't think I've implemented necessarily in my clinical practice. I do ask why a lot, obviously, especially like in your case about like exercise compliance. I can think about a client right now who has severe end-stage osteoarthritis of his right shoulder, and he's not a surgical candidate, and I've tried to get him to do various exercises, and a lot of the whys come down to just him being in the right position and the right time to do the movements. And so if anything, it got me to get him to move more, which is great. So I don't know if I necessarily went through all 5 whys, but I certainly have used why quite a bit. I think I've drilled down more in the whys, especially counseling physical therapists and friends on more of that business aspect, particularly because I know that a lot of times you can really identify business plans and barriers to consumer purchases and things with some of those whys, right? So why would it not work for in clinical practice? The other thing I loved about your case too is like the 0 to 10 scale you did. It reminds me, I took a course. It was Rose Pignertone's course on smoking cessation, and I know she's presented at CSM a few times. And if you haven't taken it, it's a smoking cessation course specific to physical therapy, and it's fantastic. And what we look at is a 0 to 10 scale based on their confidence that they can quit smoking, right? And the other 0 to 10 scale you can ask somebody is not just on their confidence, but like their motivation to quit, right? So if you get someone, for instance, that says, "Oh, I'm only a 0 out of 10 for smoking," you might be able to say, "Well, why a 0 and not a 2 or not a 5, right?" And then you can kind of hone in on some of those barriers of motivation, right? Or if they say, "I'm confident that I can quit. I'm a 10 out of 10. You might say, "Well, why are you a 10 out of 10 versus, a 7 out of 10? And they may be able to answer, "Oh, well, because I've gone through the smoking cessation class. I understand the health issues. I'm slowly tapering on my nicotine program." So I like how your 0 to 10 scale kind of mirrors that as well with the smoking cessation for motivation as well as confidence in quitting. So anyhow, I think it's great content, and I guess for me, implementing in my practice, I need to start asking more whys. And I know that the trans-theoretical model, which some people also call the stages of change, there was a good article, I think it was in 2020 by, I have to look up the authors, but it's a randomized control trial where they implemented the trans-theoretical model for patients that had knee osteoarthritis, and they found significant improvements in outcomes, and a lot of those factors are related to lifestyle change, but also asking those whys and getting into the motivational aspect of why patients are doing what they're doing, as well as their confidence in getting to where they're getting to in terms of making those lifestyle changes. Because as we know from the literature and the research, particularly in this article, and I'll find it and I'll post it. We can share it with you guys with this audio podcast. What we know with the research, though, as we implement those trans-theoretical models and we dig into the whys and find out the motivational factors for patients, exercise compliance goes up, outcomes go up, and obviously long-term health outcomes also improve, and that's ultimately what we want in our patients, right? So anyhow, Erson, I hope you have safe travels, great content. As always, like and subscribe, and check us out on LinkedIn.
Hey, Sean. Thanks for your comments. I'll be sure to check out that article, and I'll link to it in the show description. If you guys like this podcast, again, make sure to rate Untold Physio Stories 5 stars wherever you listen to podcasts, as that helps our discoverability, especially on Apple and Spotify. And like Sean said, reach out to us, especially on LinkedIn, as that's where we get our best engagement, and look forward to our lifestyle medicine certification for PTs coming in sometime in late 2025, early 2026. Have a great day, guys.